Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q4 FY21 Investors Conference Call for Tata Elxsi. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touch-tone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Lokesh Parekh from Christensen Investor Relations. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Lizanne. Good afternoon, all the participants on this call. Before we proceed to the call, let me remind you that the discussion may contain forward-looking statements that may involve known or unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors. It must be viewed in conjunction with our business risks that could cause future result performance or achievements to differ significantly from what is expressed or implied by such forward-looking statements. To take us through the results and answer your questions today, we have the senior management of Tata Elxsi, represented by Mr. Manoj Raghavan, MD and CEO, Mr. Muralidharan HV, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Nitin Pai, Chief Marketing and Chief Strategy Officer, and Mr. G. Vaidyanathan, Chief Investor Relations Officer. We will start the call with a brief overview of the past quarter by Mr. Raghavan, followed by a Q&A session. We would appreciate your cooperation in restricting your questions to 2 questions per participant to allow other participants an opportunity to interact too. If you do have further questions, do join the queue and we would be happy to respond to them if time permits. I now hand over the call to Mr. Manoj Raghavan. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Lokesh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the call today and hope you and your families are safe. At the outset, I would like to thank the entire team, the employees at Tata Elxsi. It's been a great performance in an extraordinary year, and with the COVID, posing huge challenges to maintaining our business continuity and customer centricity, while at the same time ensuring the safety and well-being of our employees, across the world. The entire team has demonstrated great commitment and passion to ensure that we stay focused on our customers' needs and focus on delivery excellence, customer delight, and really look at opportunities for growth, right? Coming to the quarter, it was definitely a very satisfying quarter with continued growth across our offerings, industries, and geographies. And to wrap up, a remarkable year for us, right? Of course, our revenues from operations for the quarter was 518.4 crores, translating to a growth of 8.7% quarter-on-quarter and about 18% year-on-year. And as you may have noticed, the growth was entirely, almost entirely volume-led, with a constant currency growth of 9.1%. Our PBT for the quarter was rupees 161.7 crores, again registering a growth of 10.6% quarter-on-quarter and 47.2% year-on-year. Net profit stood at rupees 115.2 crores, reporting a growth of 9.5% quarter-on-quarter and 40.3% year-on-year. So indeed, it was a very, very satisfying quarter with great top line and bottom line performance. The top line growth was driven by strong performance in both our key divisions, Embedded Product Design division, which is the largest division. It grew by 5% quarter-on-quarter and 15.5% year-on-year. And Industrial Design and Visualization, the IDV division also had a very smart growth. They grew by 40.1% quarter-on-quarter and 39.2% year-on-year. Our design business continues to grow strongly with improved deal flows and deal sizes, as well as cross-selling into our existing customers for upstream and design-led work. Our system integration business also grew by 21.2% quarter-on-quarter in Q4. And all of you who have been following our results for many years know that Q4 is typically a good quarter for our SI business, as our customers spend their residual infrastructure budgets for the fiscal year, and it's also the year end for them. The margins are significantly higher this time, though, due to a higher proportion of services involved in one of the large projects that we have that we bagged in the quarter and that we commissioned in the quarter. So, and that's the reason for pretty good performance in our SI business. And also, if you look at the SI business at the beginning of the year, because of COVID and so on, a lot of the deals were really put off, and many of those deals fructified in the last two quarters. That's also the reason why that business showed a good growth. Within EPD, again, it was a broad-based growth across verticals. We've had growth in the transportation business. Media and communication business also grew. Transportation grew by about 3.2% quarter on quarter, and media and communication grew 5.8% quarter on quarter. And healthcare continued to accelerate faster than the rest at 11.8% quarter on quarter. So for the full year ending March 31st, 2021, revenues from operation grew by 13.4% year on year. Both EPD and IDV grew by 14.6% and 9.1% year on year, respectively. So, all in all, in a very tough year, this is a very credible performance from the entire team. So from where we started in Q1 with last year with so many uncertainties, I'm very pleased to end the year on a high note. Delighted to exit FY21 with an all-round growth in revenues, margins, and customer additions. Gives us a great confidence going forward into the new fiscal year. And I'd like to thank our customers for their continued confidence in our differentiated capabilities in technology, design, and digital. Finally, I would like to also thank all the shareholders, and I'm happy to announce that the board has approved a final dividend of 240% for the year, along with the one-time special dividend, again 240%, translating to a total dividend of rupees 48 per share. Of course, this is subject to approval of shareholders at the forthcoming AGM. So when you look at the overall situation in the country with COVID and so on, and what we have noticed is over the last close to 24 months, the number of retail shareholders or individual shareholders has increased significantly. So given the situation with COVID and the economy and so on, since we have done well, the board decided to really give a good bonus so that all the individual shareholders and all the investors in the company benefit from the returns that we give. So with that, I would like to hand over to the Q&A session. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin with the question and answer session. Anyone wishing to ask a question may please press star and 1 on your touch-tone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants in this conference, we request you to limit your questions to 2 per participant only. The first question is with the line of Ikshit Naredi from Naredi Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, congratulations on the good set of numbers. I have a first question regarding the sensors technology. So, as the sensors technology is increasing, so are we aggressive on this segment, or this is not your cup of tea?
Sure. Sensors, when you say, sensors are used in multiple places, including in IoT. So whether it is automotive, whether it is media communication, whether it's healthcare, sensor and sensor technology plays a very important role. So a lot of the products that we work on have different type of sensors. So it's very much an integrated part of our service offerings that we have for the last more than 15, 20 years. So that's what we do. So yes, it's very important for us.
Okay. And my second question is, in life sciences business, is the story long term, and how many months visibility you are having right now? Please share your views in that.
How many months? Sorry, could you repeat the question?
In life sciences business, is the story long term, and how many months visibility you are having right now?
Yes. So instead of calling it life sciences, we call it healthcare and medical business.
Yeah.
And that business, we have been investing over the last 5 years. And yes, indeed, it's a long-term story. And people who have been following our stock knows that we have been aggressively growing that part of the business. Even in this quarter, we have had a pretty good growth. And definitely, there's a good long-term visibility over multiple years. So we have no concerns there.
Okay. And my one last question is, I heard about the VR technology is going very, it's a very vast industry and going very fast. So can you please tell something about it? Are you working on this segment or something like that?
Yeah, hi, this is Nitin here. So if I can take that, yes, we do. And I think we have a play in 2-3 directions. One, our system integration business helps integrate and sell VR gear for corporates, where you're setting up large enterprise visualization setups and so on. In fact, even in the last quarter, we've actually had some deals on that front. So that's one hand. On the development and design side, VR is becoming an integrated part of how you sell and market new products and services, including automotive. So we are working in such areas where you use VR both for education, for training, as well as in some cases for product development itself.
Okay. And do we see the great margin in this segment?
The margins are not exceptional, and I think the business is just about ramping up. So we are, in that sense, I would call it as still riding the hype cycle. So we'll have to give it some time to really settle down into large-scale use cases, widespread usage.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vimal Gohil from Union AMC. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope I'm audible. So, sir, I have 2 questions. One was, firstly, on the balance sheet. Just wanted a clarification on the 102 crore line item that is there. What would that be related to? It's in the others section, other assets.
Just a minute. Other assets.
That is the fixed deposits, having a maturity beyond 1 year period.
Got it, sir. Got it. Okay. So it will be considered as cash, right? But it's just that these are fixed deposits having maturity of over and above 1 year, which is why they are not in the current cash balance.
Yes, these are all bank balances, but the India requires us to categorize it differently this year.
Fair enough. Sir, now on the margins, 30% EBIT margins, it's sort of unheard of in the Indian IT services industry. So how sustainable are these margins? And I also do note that there is a fair bit of offshoring pickup that has also happened. If you could just break us the margin improvement what you've seen this year into how much has come from offshoring and how much has come from utilization uptick, and is it possible that utilization levels are still sort of undershooting and they still have room for growth?
No, so there are many levers for margin improvements, right? One is, of course, increased offshoring. One is more long-term projects, more longer-term engagements, and so on. Of course, better realizations and so on. More complex projects, more realization, and so on. And definitely this year has been very, very different primarily because of COVID and lot of expenses, including travel, even normal expenses, employee-related expenses, celebrations. None of that has actually happened. So it is a one-off sort of a situation. So we don't want to leave an impression that these heavy margins will continue. But as and when the economy recovers and as and when travel picks up, we will go back to our original margin profile that we have been talking of, right? Having said that, yes, we have been riding the wave, and if we can improve the margin, then of course we will try to improve the margin. No issues there. But whether this will continue, I mean, there's no way that I can say that, hey, we will continue these high margins.
Right. Sir, what would be the reason behind coming to the gross margins? Your gross margins have seen a sequential uptick of almost 260 basis points to 43%. Clearly seems to be that employee productivity has improved quite sharply this quarter. Is there any IP-led revenues that have been included here, or how should we read that?
So there is IP-led revenue also, but more important than that, there are certain new business models that we have gone into, and that is really not linked to number of employees that we work on the projects and so on. So we have been very innovative in the way we handle our customers and so on. So there are certain things that we have done well, and over the last 2-3 quarters, and that's actually resulted in improving our margins.
So does that mean at least if not the EBIT margin, the gross margins would be sustainable? That's all from my side. Last one.
So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. That is on the line of Ashish Agarwal from Principal India. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Sir, just a couple of things from my side. On the industrial design business, last 2-3 quarters have been very strong in this business. So how should we look at the growth in this business? Though the last 2-3 quarters have been great, if we look at last 3 years, the revenues have been flattish. So should we consider that this business can grow at high double digits, or how should we look at this business growth and the profitability in this business? And secondly, on the overall profitability, you said that once the travel returns, the normalcy returns, we will go back to our preferred range. So earlier our preferred range was 22 to 24% PBT margin. So are we looking at those type of range once the normalcy returns? Yeah, thanks.
Yes, so as I've been talking of our industrial design business, yes, we have been underperforming for the last many years, right? However, we did do a number of things, including change in leadership and so on. So this is a business that is immensely scalable, and I strongly believe that design is a very, very key differentiator for us. So we have done certain things, including on the front end sales, including in the back end, including in the type of deals that we go after, and also how we integrate our EPD offerings as well as our design offerings together, right? So we have done a number of things while we were all stuck with COVID and so on. There has been a lot of transformational initiatives in that particular division that we have embarked on, and I'm happy to say that whatever we did over the last 4 quarters has really resulted in this sort of dramatic return of growth into that business. So even though we've grown very significantly 30-40% growth and so on, but you look at a year on year, we are still about 9%. We have grown at 9%. I think that is also because Q1 that particular business was deeply hit because of COVID and related things. Q1 and to an extent even in Q2 we were sort of we are sort of down and but however there was a very, very smart recovery in Q3 and Q4, and that is how we were able to really show that 9% growth. So we are definitely bullish on that particular business. We would see definitely much more accelerated growth as compared to the previous year in the coming financial years, and that is a key differentiator for us, and that will really drive our business. So that is what we are also pushing. And
on the
margins, yes, whatever margin profile we've been talking of over the long term, right? Now, you don't ask me what is long term in the current scenario, I don't know. But over the long term, definitely that is what the margins that we continue to have that projections. However, in the short term, because of all these savings that we have in other expenses and so on, margins will definitely be on the higher side. But it will taper off eventually as the economy recovers.
And last thing, sir, any issues on the supply side? That's it.
Yes. So supply side is getting into a little tight situation, to be frank, especially among the senior management or the senior leadership roles and so on, because we have been growing significantly over the last 3 quarters, quarter on quarter we have been growing and so on. So yes, we are stretched at this point in time, and we are actively hiring. So that is why if you look at the numbers that we have added in this quarter, will give you an idea of we're really going out and hiring people. So yes, we need to add a lot more people, and with the situation in the industry, everybody is hiring, and salaries are shooting up. So we have all those issues, but we still hope to attract people because of the brand that we carry and the type of work that we do, and we are hopeful that we'll be able to address that situation.
And so the next round of salary hike will be again in Q2, or?
Sorry?
The salary hikes, FY22 will have a normal salary hike year, or you generally give it in Q2?
Yes, we will have the salary hike from July.
Okay, got it. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants in this conference, we request you to limit your questions to 2 per participant only. The next question is on the line of Mayank Babla from Dalal & Broacha. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for taking my question, and congratulations on a great set of numbers. My first question pertains to the transportation segment. Sir, as it's reported, we've seen that the performance has been a big roller coaster over the last 2 years. So going ahead, what can be the sustainable sort of growth that is visible in this segment?
So this segment is most affected due to COVID and so on, right? Even now, if you look at the second wave is coming in India, automotive companies are back to closing factories and so on. So it's very difficult for me to give any prediction on the sector, even for a short term or mid term. But however, over the long term, yes, whatever trends that we are talking about, whether it is electrification, whether it's autonomous, whether it's connected car, all of those trends would continue, and there is no, we don't have an issue in the long term perspective. But short term to mid term, definitely there will be some amount of stress, and we'll have to navigate it as it comes.
Sure. And so my second question is on the healthcare and medical devices segment. Sir, could you throw some light as to what is driving this phenomenal growth? If some examples of some projects that we are executing that is, differentiating us from the peers. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have been, as I said, right, we have been investing in this business for more than 5 years now. We have a very, very clear-cut strategy, and we are executing on that strategy. It's both on, we're extremely good on product development, on different medical equipment, devices, diagnostic devices, point-of-care devices, a number of things that we're doing. We have very strong capabilities on the regulatory aspects, and that is another area where we have built our own frameworks, IPs, that really helps us differentiate from any other service provider, and really show tremendous value to the customers. See, the only reason why customers would continue to give us work is, and at these rates, right, the growth rates that we're showing is, are we adding value to them or not? Are we solving the important the customer problems that they have? If we are adding value, if we are solving the problems, the business will continue. So we have sort of focused on a few problems that the industry has, few problems that the customer has, and we are attacking that. We are building intellectual property, we are building frameworks, we are going with that, and we have a differentiated play in this as compared to competition. So that's the reason why we are growing.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hiren Ved from Alchemy Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Manoj and Nitin.
Hi,
hi, congratulations for very, very good set of numbers. I think this is top-notch execution and needs to be lauded.
Thank you.
And pretty much the same question that I had last time. Also, is that what are we doing to maintain or increase the pace of the opportunity set that we go after across the three verticals. We have obviously we, for whatever extraneous reasons, partly because of that and partly obviously because of the new way of doing business, our EBITDA margins are very, very healthy. And, what are we doing to reinvest? So, while I'm very happy with the EBITDA margins, I think I'm more interested in, increasing the opportunity size for our company so that we can, grow to $1 billion revenue size company quickly. What are some of the steps that we are taking to reinvest some of that margins or even otherwise to increase the opportunity size?
Yeah. So if you look at it, there are two routes, right? One is, of course, the organic and one is the inorganic route, right? From an organic side perspective, we have been investing, a significant portion in our front-end sales, in consultants, in industry experts, and that process continues. We have not stopped that investment. We are continuing, and that is the way we are opening up new accounts, new logos, and also within our existing large accounts, we have been mining them well. If you look at our, top 5, top 3, top 5, top 10 accounts, you'll see that they've all been growing, right? And that is because of all the investments that they have been making in mining those accounts and, taking them forward, right? At the same time, there are a number of initiatives that we have also started, and we talked about adjacencies, we talked about, growth initiatives. So we are investing in all of those areas, whether it is healthcare, digital health, whether it is on the rail segment, whether it is on the OTT space, the product development that we're going on. So all of those investments are ongoing at this point in time, and the hope is all of these investments, over the next 6 to 18 months will give us force multipliers, will give us those weapons to go after and increase our business. So that is one part of it. Of course, the second part is the inorganic route. We have already identified areas that we need to strengthen, and we are in the we are targeting companies. We are in discussion with different companies. But the only thing is the good companies' valuations are very expensive even at this point in time, and those that we believe can really add value to us comes at a premium. So there is that sort of a evaluation happening at this point in time as to how these companies can help us, and hopefully when things fructify, you will hear some news there.
Sure. Just one more question from my side. While traditionally we have been working with, the top automotive companies who are trying to, who are trying to kind of move into more connected cars, autonomous cars, etc., and build those technologies in their platforms. Are we also, I think last quarter, and I think even this quarter, you mentioned that you acquired one North American EV player. How serious is the opportunity amongst these, new age EV players, or do they have a concept of tier ones like you have in a typical automotive environment? And, do you see a large opportunity to work with some of those players as well?
Yeah, I'll have Nitin answer that.
Yeah, so the answer there is a yes and a no, in the sense that new age OEMs on one hand represent the ability to work ground up, to participate in absolutely cutting edge ways of doing things because they tend to innovate. On the other hand, they also represent risk simply because they are as good as their funding in many cases, right? And therefore they have in some cases fairly bright but short lives, if I may put it that way, in terms of funding, in terms of R&D budgets, how they want to get things done and so on. So I think at this time we are taking a very judicious call on who do you want to work with, one, and how much of effort and time we want to invest with those, as against the traditional OEMs who have to pivot to the new two. Right.
Right.
So I think at this time, we are just taking a balanced view.
Got it. And and thank you for the special dividend. I hope it is not a one-time dividend. We continue to give that unless obviously we go ahead and make an acquisition. But congratulations to the team again. I think this is fantastic work, and all I can say is I'm a happy shareholder.
Thank you so much, Hiren.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Seth from Quest Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, Manoj and Nitin. Congratulations.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Fine, sir. Thank you. And really, both of you, deserve a lot, apart from the whole company teamwork. So, Manoj, you have given a very good color that how we are moving from, say, onshore to offshoring, then complex deal, long-term vis-a-vis short-term duration contract. So how to really, what kind of opportunities still we have in each of the now and all these four vertical, I would say, 3 in services and apart from that, industrial designing. All are now showing a good growth traction. So how really we look at, sustainability, whether this offshoring, because despite offshoring, we have grown, substantially in value term.
Sure. So sitting out here, I'm pretty confident of the short to mid-term prospects of the company.
Okay.
Long term, we never know. Hopefully long term also, we should not have any issues, right? So all our segments are firing very well. Yes, transportation is a little slow, but I'm sure that the situation in the economy and the COVID and all this improve. I am pretty confident that segment will also pick up rapidly, right? So the good thing is we have invested appropriately in various new initiatives, in adjacencies, so that even during COVID, even when other companies and other industries and even customers were struggling, we were able to figure out areas of growth, areas of opportunities, and really ensure that the company grows. We don't stagnate, and as a result, we reward our investors and our employees also accordingly.
Okay. So this, value margin is short of, not as in long term may come down little, but not earlier. What, because of more offshoring, complex deal, so higher realization, and all these things. And plus industrial design also started, contributing. So that is one thing. And second thing, earlier we had, of course, ambition of growing, say 8 to 9 or 10% QOQ. So in that journey, where do we really see our, and how is the deal win that we have currently and deal pipeline also?
Yeah, the last quarter was very good. I think consecutively, even during the peak of COVID, I think the last 3 quarters we have definitely closed a lot more than in the previous years and so on, right? So it is only possible this growth, 8% or 9% quarter-on-quarter growth that you see is only possible if you close those large deals and if you are able to ramp up and execute and deliver, right?
Correct.
So that discipline has been there. Teams have been extremely disciplined. We have kept our customers happy, and we have really delivered value when, in fact, our customers were unable to work and they were, having furloughs and they were closed.
Great.
It is our engineers who really helped them, supported them, and helped keep their business running. So to that extent, I think we have done an extremely good job. Many of our engineers have put in, many hours per day, right? Many hours per week, solving customer issues and problems and so on. A lot of appreciation from customers for the efforts that we have put in. And I think all of this will really hold us in good stead, right? Especially when things return to normal and so on. Most of our customers will hopefully realize the value that we have delivered to them and continue the business with us.
Now coming to your aspiration of 8-9% kind of a QOQ growth, just a last question, sorry.
The operator. Mr. Seth, may we request that you return to the question queue?
Sure.
There are participants waiting for their turn. Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dipesh Mehta from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I have a couple of questions, I think partly addressed, but considering our focus on three verticals over medium term, if you can help us sub-segment or sub-vertical where we are investing to fuel our growth over medium term. So if you can provide some perspective, transportation, communication, healthcare, which are the sub-verticals which we have identified to drive future revenue growth? And second question is, can you share the utilization where we are in Q4? Thank you.
Hi, this is Nitin here. Maybe I'll take that. In some sense, the sub-segments are reasonably clear, right? Because if you look at automotive, it really carves out into connected, autonomous, shared, and mobility. Shared is, in some sense, a secondary derivative of connected and autonomous and electric. So to that extent, we clearly are investing in all three. We're growing capabilities and capacities in all three, right? And I think all of them are trending towards digital technology. So it's not just about what is in the car, but what's also in the cloud, and how do you optimize and manage and run both the cloud and the in-vehicle piece better. As far as media and communications is concerned, I think we are very clear. On one hand, you have the device companies, whether it is boxes, network equipment, and so on. That's traditional. You have the operators who formed the second wave when they started to take control of software, then when they wanted to innovate faster and not be tied down to black boxes supplied by the device companies. And I think the third layer that is coming in now is the new media companies who don't necessarily need any infrastructure or capex to run services. They're asset light in some sense, though content, etc., can be quite asset heavy. But these are broadcasters, media studios, content owners, aggregators who can now deliver services directly. So these are the key segments in the media and communication side. In healthcare, we started with medical devices, right? But we have now expanded to pharma and to digital health. So in that sense, these are new sub-segments that we are both investing in and building on. In addition to all of this, I think rail and off-road vehicles, though you can call them, you can call off-road automotive, but it's really not automotive. It uses the same skills, technologies, but in a different way. So off-road and rail for us are, in some sense, B2B or B2G kind of businesses, which are not directly dependent on consumer sentiment. So broadly, I would call this out as the entire segmentation. On the utilization rate, it has improved further. So we are, I think, at about 77% now for the quarter. We still have room to go. So I think Manoj said, I'm just making this point for everybody. There are levers. There is still room in the levers. Unwinding of these levers will take time. So it's not that there's going to be a sudden change or drop in margins and so on. But having said that, yes, 77% is where we are on utilization.
Sure. And last related question, do we say, let's say, breakup? You said auto, we have said mobility, connected vehicle, electrification. Do we say size and scale of, let's say, each sub-segment in some way?
No, at this time we don't, because we believe that
so much of absolute.
Exactly.
No issues. Thank you. Thanks.
It's a little complex, right? So it's not that you do only autonomous or there's no connected and autonomous or there is no digital and electric. So it's I think sometimes impractical to even try and basket it.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is on the line of Madan Babu from Canara HSBC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Sir, earlier we used to have some volatility in revenues, I think, but over the last few quarters it has stabilized and we are doing very well. But going into next year, do you see any softness in 1Q or any volatility on the revenue trajectory, or we are confident considering the deal pipeline?
The deal pipeline is good, so I don't see such issues happening at this point in time. But all said and done, our business depends on our customers' budgets, and so can I say that there will not be any further any customer dropping their budget and so on? At this point in time, we can't make that assumption. So what I can tell you is, even if one or a couple of customers pull the plug or they have some budget issues, Tata Elxsi is resilient enough to overcome that, and we have proved that. We have shown it multiple times. We will be able to recover and grow. So we have our basket of customers is improved. The size and scope of business that we deliver to customers have also increased. So we are fairly confident and believe that we have a resilient business model.
And just one more, sir. Of the 7,300 employees, how many are in the on-site in Europe and US? Can you give the exact number?
On-site is a smaller number. Exact number, I think we should be around 700 or so. I don't have the exact number, but ballpark it is around 700, 710 or so.
Okay, 10% of your headcount. Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hussain, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello. First of all, sir, congratulations for the good set of numbers. So my question is, where do we see ourselves in the medical space due to the uncertainty in COVID-19 scenario right now?
I think medical business continue to grow for us. I don't think because of COVID we have had any issue in our medical, in our healthcare and medical devices space. So that business continues to accelerate. As long as there are no massive lockdowns and, the only problem that will happen is if, how medical companies, they make money is through these elective surgeries. So when the elective surgeries come down, the medical companies don't make money. So as long as, for example, in abroad, in US and Europe and so on, things are returning back to normal. Of course, in some countries, we still have, they still have COVID-related issues. But world over, like most countries are coming back, and vaccination. Many countries have vaccinated more than 50% of their population and so on. So things are returning back to normal. So elective surgeries are happening. Medical companies are making money, so that business will continue.
Okay. Sir, and second question is regarding the shortage of semiconductor, which is exaggerated a lot. So we see, do we see any kind of opportunity in this segment?
We don't see an opportunity in semiconductor shortage, right? So we don't make chips, or we don't. So it's not an opportunity. It's sometimes a risk if some of the key markets, like automotive market, there's a shortage, then car makers are not able to sell their cars, and as a result of which they decide to slash their budget and so on and so forth. So, but however, that's a very small risk. So we don't see the semiconductor shortage as either an opportunity or a risk for us at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohan Doshi from Finvest Advisors. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have two questions. My one question is this pertain to shortage of chips only. Will it affect only the automotive industry, or it can affect even the medical devices or even the communication devices, etc.? So what is your take? Like, any of your clients have suffered problem because of the shortage of chips? Like in today's newspaper, it had come that JLR production may be affected because of the chip shortage.
So as far as we hear automotive companies being affected, but it has not affected any of our business so far.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see an effect of it on communication or on the healthcare or medical devices so far. We have not heard anything from our customers.
Okay, but do you think it can affect us in future?
Yeah, so maybe I'll answer that, right? So the semiconductor shortage is fundamentally a disruption of the supply chain, right? And some extraordinary events. Fire in a factory in Taiwan, floods in Taiwan. No, water shortage in Taiwan, fire in some factory somewhere else and so on. So if you think about it, these are one-time disruptions, extraordinary events. The industry is reworking the supply chain and already investing in additional capacity and plants. So yes, for the next 6 months, 9 months, you will find disruptions. The disruptions will be in certain segments, certain types of chips, and so on. So my view, I think the industry in that sense is quite resilient to work around. Answer will not be a quarter or 2 quarters. I think the impact also is not going to be so bad for a quarter or 2 quarters.
Okay, so we are not getting affected.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Now my second question is, in the earlier con call you said that because government has not announced this export incentive rates, you have not accrued any income. So what is the position as of now?
Same question. We have not taken any, the government even now has not announced anything.
Okay. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. That is from the line of Apurva Prasad from HDFC Securities. Please go ahead.
Thanks for taking my question. I have two. Congratulations on the numbers. So Manoj, looking at the acceleration in top 2 to 10, can you say that is the visibility also higher as the pipeline driver appears to be more from larger accounts? And related to that, based on your comments on addition of customers and large deals across the industry segments, is the trajectory of 5% plus Q on Q sustainable?
Yeah, definitely visibility in the top 5, top 10 customers is pretty good for us. The order book and the deal pipeline is good. And I think we have spent a lot of bandwidth in mining these accounts. And I think we are in a good position, especially with respect to top 10 customers. At the same time, as we've announced, we've also won some new deals, and these are all again good logos that will eventually help us over the 6 months, 12 months to really ramp up, our business. So yes, so we are in a good position, and unless something happens in the industry or any particular customer decides to pull the plug in any which way, right? We should be able to show healthy growth.
Right, that sounds good. And on the margins, while you spoke about this earlier, but this is more from a near-term perspective. Do you see any near-term headwinds to the margins? So be it offshore coming down from the current levels, or supply side impacting your attrition levels, and also if you can talk about the hiring plans for FY22.
Yeah, so I think margins, we are pretty comfortable, and as I said, right, in the near term, yes, the only issue, or not the issue, the only thing is that we will have a salary hike again, and it's just not the salary hike. We've also, because our employees have really put in all the hard work, and supported our customers, and the remote working has taken a toll and so on. So we've also rewarded our employees with, apart from the normal salary hike, we are also giving them a 1-month bonus. So that has also been, we will roll it out. So there will be an impact of both salary hikes and the bonuses, and to that extent, our margins may dip a little bit. But I think over the next 4 quarters, we hopefully will be around the same margins as in the last fiscal.
All right. Just to clarify, you mentioned 1-month bonus, which will be given out in the first quarter, and the wage hike that happens in the second quarter.
Yeah. So we will not give the entire thing in the first quarter. We'll divide it between the first and the third quarter.
Great. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shyam Sundar Shriram from Sundaram Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my question. Very strong performance both from a revenue perspective as well as the operational perspective. Just one main question. So you've been highlighting our approach to increase our projects more from a project-based to a more annuity-based kind of a structure, which will give you more visibility and margin levers per se. So if you can give some perspective on how our average deal duration for the new deal wins that has happened in this year, how has that been? Are these all multi-year deals that we have won in F21? And that is the first part of the question. Secondly, given that we make such high gross margins, are these new deals priced more aggressively by sharing some of these efficiency gains per se If you can give some perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I would say at least the large deals that we have been closing are definitely multi-year deals, right? We have closed, 3-year deals, 5-year deals, and so on. So definitely that is that part of it. At the same time, it's not that all the deals that we have are these multi-year deals. We also have, 6 months, 12-month deals, and so on. So again, it depends on customers and the area of work, and but what I would definitely want to state here is the number of large deals that we're chasing is definitely much higher than the previous year and so on. So to that extent, yes, there is this moment towards large multi-year deals. Pricing wise, I think pricing is a function of the area that you are operating in, the value that you bring in, the type of deals that are there, for example, digital or AI based, or we talked about virtual reality and all the new skills. So depending on the area that we operate in and the capability that we bring in, whether we have intellectual property, whether we have accelerators that we bring in. So the pricing is not a straight fit, right? It's not like an IT company where we just price based on so many dollars per hour, right? Based on the junior resource that we bring in. So that we try and avoid such a pricing scenario. We bundle value and price according to that. Price customers according to the value that we deliver. So it is not a straightforward answer, but yes, that's how it is.
Sure, sir. That's very helpful. And when you spoke about the inorganic way of growing, you spoke about specific capabilities that we may want to acquire. Which are some white spaces that we want to that we would like to strengthen ourselves from a capability perspective? Is it more in the media OTT segment? Is it more on the medical equipment side or on the automotive ADAS side? If you can throw some perspective on what are some of your top 3 focus areas when you look for acquisitions. And what would be the kind of deal sizes you look at? Thank you.
Yeah, no, at this point of time, we don't want to talk about all these white spaces. This is something that we're working on, right? And it's confidential to the organization. I'm sure you can guess, what areas that we have actually talked about some of those areas in the past also, right? Regarding adjacencies and so on. Those are areas that we're really focusing on in terms of, looking at inorganic. However, at the right time, we will update you as and when we see some traction there and when we take some decisions, then we'll let you know.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Harish Kavalkar, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Sir, good afternoon, and my very much heartful congratulations to you in navigating this COVID-19 situation and delivering outstanding result. I have 2 questions, sir, and first one is regarding the special dividend. I think you have ROC of around 35 to 40% and return on retained earning, that is RORE of around 15%, and you have reserve around 1,200 crores, and you declared 149 crore, around 10% of reserve, right? So I think if you have that money, then it has a chance to grow at more percentage point than giving it to the retail investor. I am a retail investor. I don't have any issues with that. So that might be my personal opinion. But if the amount remains in the company, it will help to grow a company in the future. So what is your take on that, sir?
Yeah, so as I said, right, it has been a tough year for many people, right? And there are many people, and as a group, as a Tata Group, we felt that we have to really give back to the society, especially in the tough year. And that is the reason why the board decided to give a special dividend, because people are struggling, people are suffering, it will help them. And so that is the only logic where we decided that, okay, this year let us be liberal with the returning the money to the stakeholders. And that's why we took this decision.
Okay, sir. No, sure. And my second question regarding the transportation vertical, other than COVID situation, you have identified any risk over there in transportation, why it is not growing, other than COVID situation?
Yeah, so this is Nitin here. I think we've talked about this in the past. The point is that industry has also been undergoing some structural changes because of the fact that EVs mean that you do not need the kind of structures and people and skills that you had in traditional OEMs. The manufacturing methods are different. The decisions on what you need to own versus what you could afford to get supplied by third-party suppliers is also changing. Software is becoming very, very important. So earlier OEMs did not have to worry about software. It came in a box, you gave it, sold it, and you didn't have to worry about it. Now software has to change over the air. Your infotainment system gets updated, your ECUs get updated inside the car. So I think there are structural changes that go beyond COVID. Right? COVID only worsened the situation by making it even more difficult to spare R&D budget on all these things that you need to do. Right? So we believe in some sense technology will continue to accelerate in the automotive space. Electronics and software and digital is what will drive the industry. And I think our capabilities are very aligned to those areas. So that is where I think we are quite confident in the long term. But in the short term, yes, we'll have to deal with this dual problem of structural changes and COVID and revenue and stagnation in the industry in terms of sales.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. That is on the line of Raj Rishi, a private investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Would like to know what's your plan for the education sector? Are you making a foray in the education sector also?
Yeah, so we have definitely we work with two large players in this segment. Our design team, the industrial design and visualization team, does a lot of work in the education sector, especially around the graphics, using various tools like AR, VR, all of that, right? How to make it interesting for kids and so on. So we have a very serious play in that sector.
Can that become another pillar like your automotive broadcasting or the medical devices and adjacency?
I'm not sure whether it can be a pillar as such, but definitely it can be a good sub-segment within the industrial design business.
Okay, it'll be part of the industrial design business.
Yeah.
Okay. And,
of course, software piece is also there, so we cross-leverage capabilities from other teams like the media and communication and so on. Okay. But it's driven by the industrial design business.
Okay. Like, given my understanding of the areas which you're trying to address, the scale of the opportunity seems to be such that the present turnover of, say, Tata Elxsi, the revenues which you're generating around not even 2,000 crores, like many times that is possible. I'm sure, like, given the optimism which you have generally when I've heard you, you have some internal assessment as to, where you can reach in 3 to 5 years. Can that be a multi-billion dollar possibility, Mr. Manoj?
There is a huge opportunity, no doubt, right? We are in the midst of a huge market which is growing and exploding. Technology use is really exploding. Yes, I wish I can say yes, that there's a multi-billion dollar opportunity and we will be there. Yes, definitely we have our own plans and these are significant large, what we call, right, large hairy goal that we have. Yes, it is a large goal that we're taking in the next 3 to 5 years and we're working on it. But it can be a large opportunity, no doubt about it.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants, we kindly request you to limit your questions to one per participant only. The next question is from the line of Ravi Naredi from Naredi Investments. Please go ahead.
Really, Manoj, it is a very fantastic result. I am shareholder since a very long year, and it is a surprise to know you have given a fantastic return. And sir, in this 3D printing is growing well. Are we planning anything big in this segment?
Yeah, hi. This is Nitin here. There is no direct plan for us in the 3D printing segment. Why? Because technology is fairly stable there. It is just that 3D printing kicked off big time after the patents expired there. Okay. It was held by one or two companies, and therefore it was not available for the rest of the market. Once the patents opened up after 20 years of closed kingdom, that is where 3D printing has taken off globally, because economies of scale have kicked in. Everybody can produce at actual cost rather than what came with royalties and so on. So in that sense, I think it's a transformative opportunity for certain sectors like very complex engineering, footwear, personal goods, and so on. So design will benefit greatly. From a software development, etc., I don't think there is too much to count on. By the way, our system integration business does sell and service and support 3D printing technology for very specific sectors. So they are starting to see some business too.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Chakdher from Green Capital Single Family Office. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon to Manoj and Nitin, and congratulations on the efficient execution of your annual plans. My question is more in specific to looking at the geography of Japan and looking at the business update on the health and life sciences segment there. Can the management give a small business update on that segment and geography, both in terms of outsourcing and design and development? Also, we understand Japanese people to be more using their workforce rather than outsourcing, so a bit of comment on that, as well as any opportunities which have come directly or indirectly to the company in the upcoming Olympics, or companies that you would be working with, or customers that you would be working with. Thank you.
Yeah, so Tata Elxsi has been working with Japanese companies for the last 25 years. Right, since 1996, we have been operating in Japan, and we have a pretty strong and stable customer base there. Yeah, you're right. You rightly said Japanese companies typically there are issues, there are cultural issues, there are language issues. They typically tend to work with their own subsidiary companies and so on. And outsourcing is not an easy decision for many Japanese companies. Having said that, I think from Tata Elxsi's perspective, we have what percentage here?
Yeah, it's the rest of the world, so it's about 8 to 10%.
About 8 to 9% of our revenues come from Japan, right? So and it's been relatively stable. It's been growing, but not at a very accelerated growth rate. And a lot of our business there comes from automotive companies right now, because as you know, Japan, there are leading both OEMs and tier ones there. And in general, the automotive industry is also, because of all these issues, outsourcing is not growing that rapidly, right? Having said that, yes, we have been winning projects, and especially for Japanese companies, when they win projects overseas, whether in Europe or US, it's very difficult for them to manage those projects because of the language and so on. So that is when companies like us, they tie up with us, and then we support them in their customer communication and really understanding what the end customer needs and how to deliver that value to them, right? So yes, Japan is an important market, it's a steady market, and we get good projects from there. We get good technology related projects, and these are typically long-term customers also, right? Regarding the healthcare and medical devices business, yes, and as we have already stated in the press release and so on, it's been growing pretty well. It's in fact the fastest growing business for us. I think year on year we grew upwards of 60% in that business, and we see a lot of headwinds there, mainly in US and Europe. We are expanding that to other areas, including India and Japan, but it'll take some more time. But however, that business has been growing pretty well for us, and we hope to continue that growth in the near term to mid term.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naveen Bothra, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Congratulations, sir, for industry-leading excellent performance for the continuous
third quarter in a row, even if we leave out the first quarter, which I think the last 5-6 quarters we are performing excellently. So congratulations to the all management team and team Tata Elxsi. First of all, I would like to appreciate you have already appreciate the thing about the capital allocation, almost delivered on that promise done earlier in the last 2-3 calls. So we appreciate that very much, because we have already all the free cash flow generated this year has almost been distributed. So congratulations for that one. I appreciate. My one question is regarding the hiring plan targets. What are our hiring plan targets in view of the large multi-year deals we have won in all the 3 verticals? So in this year we have hired around 11 to 12% net addition. So going ahead this year's target, if you can throw some more light on this one, it will be helpful, sir. To Manoj, sir.
Yeah, yes, definitely. So thank you, Naveen-ji. So yes, we have been growing pretty well, and so our utilization is also going up. So definitely, as you have seen in the last quarter also, we have hired a number of people, and our plan is twofold, right? One is, yes, we would be hiring people from colleges, fresh grads and so on. Approximately maybe 700 or so engineers will be hiring from the colleges. And on top of it, yes, even we will have an accelerated hiring from lateral pool, because of the opportunities and the projects that we have bagged, and we really need to execute. So we will be hiring maybe an equal number or even slightly more, depending on how the deal pipeline and the closures happen and so on. So hiring will definitely be accelerated this year. To meet the requirements of deal wins and so on.
So if I can understand right, it will be 700 plus 700 lateral hirings.
At a minimum.
At the minimum. Okay, sir, that will be great. So second question is just regarding pharma business to Nitin, sir. What do you mean by pharma in the health and medical devices space? We have entered into pharma space. So what you do mean by pharma? Are we hiring scientists and all these things in this vertical?
No. So Mr. Bothra, maybe I'll take that question. So in pharma, we see 3 different types of pieces. 2 of them are skills that we carry on from the medical device space. Because a lot of pharma companies also provide for drug delivery devices, whether their drugs are delivered through insulin pens, through single dose pens, through very specific kind of delivery devices. So there is work to do, just like we do with medical devices. There is work to do with pharma on drug delivery. 2, there is work to be done on packaging, labeling, regulatory, and related work, which has similar skills as what we do in medical devices. So of course, we need to bring in domain experience, core teams, and so on, but lower level skills are the same. So what is the only thing that is absolutely different would be in drug discovery and so on, which at this time we are not focusing on. So we are really trying to build on adjacent skill sets, but applying to the pharma industry.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ankit Shah from White Equity. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question. Can you share your thoughts on on-site offshore mix, let's say for next 2-3 quarters, and what could be a sustainable mix over the medium term? Thank you.
I think the on-site offshore mix over the next 3 quarters will continue to hover around the same, right? Because most countries have already started stopping Indian engineers from traveling. There's no flights now and so on. So at least 1-2 quarters, I don't think the situation will improve. So and also customers have got used to this, offshoring and working, delivering value from offshore. So I think we may never go back to those early days. I mean, earlier days wherein 50% used to be on site and 50% used to be offshore. So even after 3-4 quarters, maybe we should be in the same, maybe 35, 30, 70 or 35, 65, that range.
Got it. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rudresh Kalyani, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. See, when the work from home is in thing, I got to know that we expanded.
Mr. Kalyani, sir, we are able to hear you, but your voice is not clear. Can you use the handset mode while speaking?
Yeah.
Thank you.
See, yeah. See, what I want to ask is, when the in thing is work from home, but I got to know that we expanded our office premises. What is the reason behind that?
We've expanded our office spaces. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Okay, what you're picking up on, but we have definitely looked at expanding capacity, especially in the SEZs and so on. That is more to take benefit from what we do as overseas work. But otherwise, we have been careful about expanding office space.
Oh, okay. And one more thing is, can you give me a broad-based growth guidance for at least for next 3 to 5 years?
We don't do that as a rule, so I don't think we'll change that for the next 3 to 5 years.
I think our growth, you can look at our growth trajectory, and I'm sure you will be able to plot it yourselves.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nemish Shah from MK Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
Yes, thanks for this opportunity and congratulations for a great set of numbers. Most of my questions have been answered. Just one data point. What will be our effective tax rate going forward?
Tax rate, I think we should be about 26 or 25, 26 in that range, right? So what we are doing is also we are in this year we will expand our SEZ capacity also. So we will have a lot more of our business coming under SEZ. So they will be tax free. So we will have an opportunity to reduce the tax rate.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sanjaya Satpathy from Ampersand Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Satpathy. We are not able to hear you.
Sir, can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. And it's a fantastic set of results. And in fact, I can see that most of the people are not being able to digest the pace of growth that you have shown in last couple of quarters. And you yourself are appearing to be a bit shy of accepting that as a tremendous achievement, because 8-9% quarter-on-quarter growth seems to be too strong or too good to be true. So the way I just want to frame my question is that, of course, there has been tremendous amount of operating leverage benefit, etc., which has happened. On let's say the kind of domain that you are addressing, is it suffice to say that you are, unlike typical IT companies who are in that 8-10% kind of growth industry, you are in 20-30% kind of growth industry? That is what, if you can just make us understand.
Yeah, so maybe I can take that. The answer is not a simple dimension of saying, are we in an area of service which is growing at 30% vis-a-vis our IT companies in an area of service which is growing at 10%. I think the answer will be multidimensional. One part of the dimension is industries that we operate in and their growth rate. Two is the areas that we operate in terms of what are we doing in terms of technologies and so on, and what is that adoption going to be. For example, autonomous or electric or connected car may be growing at completely different rates than the automotive industry itself, which technically at this time is stagnant, right? The third dimension, I think, also comes from within engineering, what do we do? So we traditionally always focus on electronics, software, and digital. I think that by itself has higher growth and adoption and spend in relative budgets of customers than in all other areas. So I think if you think about it, you should actually multiply all these factors and not look at it purely as one single dimension of are we in a growth industry alone. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I really appreciate this kind of a bit of a subjective understanding, but since we have the data, but can we really summarize it by saying that you are essentially catering to a much higher growth industry than the plain vanilla IT services company?
Absolutely. That can be a straight assumption you can make.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Arjun, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for giving this opportunity. My first question is, can I know a bit more about the multi-million connected car opportunity that you have declared in your results? What is the nature of the opportunity?
Yeah, so I presume you're referring to the deal announcement that we made.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So if you look at it, we have built an in-house platform for IoT that is tuned to deliver connected car services for customers. And this is predominantly meant for OEMs who want to deploy their own platforms, want control over software and so on. It works on the cloud, but it is fundamentally delivering software ownership to OEMs. So Tata Motors, by the way, was our first customer, and that we went public with last year. So we've now won another OEM who is global, and they have selected us for a specific market. That will be the first market that we launch in. And it's a multi-year program, obviously, because we'll have to work with them not just by licensing the platform, but also helping them integrate it, implement it, and run it. So we believe that the deal itself is multi-year and multi-million, but we're also hoping that there's an upside of being able to address other regions by demonstrating the capability and the power of the platform that we're deploying.
Okay, thank you. My second and last question is, our industry is fully with disruption. So which disruption worries you the most?
I always look forward to disruption. So disruption doesn't worry us at all. We have seen so many disruptions in our career, and disruptions have always been positive for us. So it's good. Let it come on.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Manish Bhandari from Vallum Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for this wonderful set of results. I have two questions. My first question is regarding the deal announcement, what you have done, and one of the deal announcement is about the cybersecurity services. I just wanted to know, is this a new, very strategic area for us, something similar to what it was the healthcare some time back?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take this again. For us, cybersecurity is more of a horizontal. So while healthcare technically is an industry vertical by itself, we see cybersecurity as becoming an important topic for all our customers across industries. Now, we have to note that we are not dealing with enterprise security. So we are not here to be a McAfee or a equivalent. We are looking at the context of what does cybersecurity mean for the kind of devices we work on. So what does it mean for gateways? What does it mean for cars? Where are the ways to enter these devices? How do you protect them? What do you need to do from system software, both in the device and in the cloud? So I think we are coming from our domain and our deep understanding of these devices and these industries, and then trying to address the cybersecurity issue. So I hope that clarifies. So with that,
is that a consulting assignment for individual clients?
No. So it tends to be both. So there is some amount of consulting and let's say, like you would have a design project, you will have to think of cybersecurity in the design stage itself. So it becomes just another dimension of what you need to design and develop for. And then there are also services where once products are deployed, you continue to monitor and make sure that there are no further risks occurring.
Sure. And my last question is regarding the exchange gains. Do you have anything in this quarter to report? Gains or loss?
Murli, are you there? Can you handle that?
Yes, Manoj. I am there on the call. Let me handle it. Yes, we do have a loss from the exchange gain in this quarter.
Loss from exchange gain, you mean to say loss? How much is the loss from exchange currency fluctuation?
Yeah, it's the currency fluctuation because we had some forward covers booked in advance, so that and the currency movement went in the other way, and so and the collections did not materialize as we thought, and so we had a loss there.
How much? Can you quantify the number?
It's 4 crores.
It is disclosed in the results in the page. It is 4 crores.
4 crores.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the last question. I now hand the conference over to the management for the closing comments.
Thank you everybody for the call, and look forward to seeing you again in the next quarter.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Tata Elxsi, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines. Thank you.